Hey there, Scapers, and welcome to yet another JMod Tea Break. For those of you who don't know, JMod Tea Breaks are all about your chance to put your feet up, grab a cuppa, listen to some of us on the RuneScape team, and natter about development and beyond. Now, normally, a JMod Tea Break is not the place you'll find some juicy new announcement. But this week, we are going to reveal the first details on our upcoming boss content coming next month. That will happen later in the stream, but it will be happening today. So exciting stuff. We will get to it, but first we got a little bit of a tea break and we're going to go into some details. And given our upcoming boss reveal, who better to join us on a tea-filled adventure than two developers from the RuneScape team who worked on it. So say hello today to Mod Jack, Senior Content Designer, and Mod Ryan, Senior Content Developer.
Hello there, you can see my very stationary camera as everyone is commenting on.
Oh, you're not going into a career as a human statue, Mod Ryan?
Nah, no, I'll save that one maybe for the after my career here.
Fair enough. It's a weird career path. Go for it. You do you, man. Also in the background, who you will see playing some gameplay for us shortly, whilst we have our little chat, will be Mod Spear. He's going to be taking the reins for some gameplay, just so there's some stuff going on in the background, which you may find slightly related. But also, so thanks firstly for both of you for joining us. Like we said, the tea time's your chance to kind of talk to the community about what you do, who you are as people, and just kind of let's just have a chat together. So just to kick it off, why don't you tell people, what do you do at Jagex and what does your role even mean in terms of game development?
Shall I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. So I'm a designer on RuneScape, and on RuneScape, designer means something slightly different to what it means on a lot of game companies. So the conventional setup would be like the designer writes something and then they hand it off to a developer who implements it, and that's not quite how we do things on RuneScape. So our content developers like Brian both design and implement things. So my job is mostly sort of supervision and review of designs. I don't like tell Ryan what to do. We work together on things. So I might propose the project to him. He might then write the project, and then I might give him feedback on the project. Sometimes on a large project like mining and smithing, I would be the principal designer. So I actually authored most of the design of mining and smithing. But in the case of content we're going to be talking about later, the vast majority of the game design on that came from Ryan and also from Mod Ramen. And I was only involved, like I helped to write things and write dialogue and gave feedback, but I wasn't, the primary designer on the project.
So you like have a kind of like you're working in kind of a broader way compared to, say, Ryan, who's like focused on the project itself. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I have. So my primary responsibility right now is actually the storyline of next year and the year after, and how this year plugs into that. That's the primary thing I'm looking at and responsible for now. So I do a lot of talking to people across. So I had a meeting with creative services earlier today to talk about iconography for the next big marketing push that they're going to be doing, and what icons we're going to be using, and how those icons are going to represent the things that they're supposed to represent, and how the things that we've got don't quite work as icons, and what, so I have these meetings with marketing and production and design, trying to coordinate between different projects.
Insane. Long-term thinking too, like 2 years. Wow. Ryan, just before we come to you as well, I just want to talk to chat as well. I forgot to mention something. So for those of you who don't know, we had a client crash introduced on Monday that's now been what we call warm fixed. So if you're encountering that, hopefully that'll be resolved. We are still working on the graphics flickering that some of you are reporting. Just so you know, we are aware, we are still working on it, and we'll hopefully have updates for you soon. I just wanted to let you know, chat, that we have further kind of updates on that front coming. So thanks for your patience. Mod Ryan, so obviously we talked a little bit about Jack's role and this kind of like crazy long-term thinking and all the different aspects across different parts of the game and beyond when you're talking about marketing teams. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about what you do and what it means to be a content developer on RuneScape?
Yeah, so kind of in contrast to the design role, we half of our time is spent designing and half of it's developing. I guess not strictly in time, because it takes a lot longer usually to actually make the thing, but I guess some more specifics. If we take the archaeology project, I'll just use it as an example, which is something I worked on with some others. Timbo was the designer on that, and I was one of the developers, and we worked together on the design. And I was doing a lot more like the specifics, like how do we want the skill to work and like some of the real details, whereas Timber definitely had a lot more of like oversight on like where do we want the skill to sit in the game, how do we want the skill to work long term, what do we want the items to do long term. But yeah, I think when it comes to it as a developer, we get given a project or like a general theme, like some aims, what do you want to try and tackle. So if we here's a new boss, can you make a new boss, and here are some aims, then we'd go away, design it, write what we want to do, take it to maybe Jack and talk a bit about it and like elaborate on like where we want to take it, and then Jack can offer his, I don't know why I'm calling you Jack, sorry, your name's not Jack, but Jack's offering his views and how we can expand on that. But yeah, ultimately we're down in the dirt, making the content, specifically actually scripting it and putting it all together.
So how do you even get to that point, like Ryan, over your career? Like, how do you get that like design sense? What does design sense even mean? I guess if I was to say, like, what makes good design?
That is a very good question.
Yeah.
Tim and I could talk about this for a while, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, like, if we talk a bit about design, I think design in RuneScape, well, design is very specific to obviously what you're designing for, like the game. So some things that, great game design fundamentals, you have to adapt them and like fit them into the RuneScape world because of like the aim of our game and what it's all about. And where am I going with that point? Oh yeah, so in regards to like RuneScape design, I think that a lot of it, there's so much like we could talk about. Of course, the game's been around for so long now. I was playing the game when I was a kid. I think I was playing when I was about 10 years old. And
Me too.
I'm 26 now, so it's been a long time.
I would have been about
years. And there's a lot of like, when it comes to designing RuneScape, sometimes it's about like knowing a lot about the game as well, like how the game currently functions and the things that are going on and where we want to, what sort of area of the game we want to tackle, because, it's a very different game. I think is a good way of putting it. RuneScape is very different to, different, we're all different games, and coming into it and designing content, having, the knowledge of the game is very useful. I think that, I've lent on that for the entire time I've worked at Jagex. I've used my knowledge of the game, having played for so long, to really like understand the fundamentals and like the very deep parts of the game. Yeah, I think.
So you
I'll
have a
stop
bit of that,
waffling.
like. No, do you ever have that like moment where you kind of sit back and you go like, oh god, if 10-year-old me knew I was working on RuneScape now, like holy crap sort of moments? And it like, is it weird to you that you work on it after playing it for so long?
It was. Not so much anymore, but I think that's just because I think I've worked on the game now for 6, nearly 7 years, maybe somewhere in that realm. So, it's like half my playtime on RuneScape, is actually working on it now. So that like I'm slowly transitioning into the other side, less of the player side now. It's just fun fact. Like, I thought that I played RuneScape a lot before I worked at Jagex. Turns out that I probably played it more after it, and like the majority of my like account progress came like after working at Jagex. It's kind of crazy when I used to think about it. But of course it is a surreal experience. It's really nice, being able to, have those dream jobs, and getting into it and sort of like progressing and stuff. But yeah, making RuneScape content is definitely the most, I treat it as a hobby just as much as a job. Like, I super enjoy making the content, which hopefully shows in the content that I've produced.
Yeah. So like, this goes to both of you then, actually, because like speaking of like being 10, like how did you both even end up as designers? Like, what does that even look like? Like, if someone was watching this and goes, "Oh, I want to be that person," how the hell did you guys get there?
It's just, I was thinking about the question of like RuneScape. My story is almost the exact opposite of Ryan's, which is that I hadn't even. Not only had I not played RuneScape before I started at Jagex, well, I played it for the interview, right? But I hadn't played the game prior to that. But I hadn't even heard of it. I genuinely hadn't heard of RuneScape. No, because I'm exactly the wrong age. I missed it completely. There's like a group of sort of 10-year-olds who shouldn't have been played it to like late teens who were playing it. At the point when RuneScape became popular, I was in my mid-20s at that point, so I didn't catch it. And I called it RuneQuest in my interview. And they hired me anyway, so that worked out well.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Sorry,
Yeah.
your question was how did we get started in this career, right?
No, I mean,
I came into the games industry late, right? Always knew I wanted to be a game developer, but I do talks on this for students sometimes, and it took me. I was 30 when I actually started in the games industry, and the reason that it took so long for me to get started was basically because it took me that long to get over myself. I didn't want to start in QA and work my way up. I wanted to go straight in at design, and I didn't. And it was 30, and then at 30, I started in QA and started working my way up. So my career is like 10 years behind everyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my key advice for anyone who wants to get started in the games industry is like don't think you're too good for any particular job. You're not. Like do the work, get in, do the job well. Whatever job you have, do it well. Get promoted. You know.
Yeah, I mean that's a good like segue into. I mean, we mentioned it, or we briefly mentioned it, but yeah, I mean when I joined Jagex originally, I was joined the player support team, and then after a period of time, I moved from player support to QA. And then after a period of time, I sort of like left Jagex for a period of time and then came back as a developer. So yeah, in terms of getting into the games industry, you know, it was always my dream, and I sort of, you know, came in where I could and then worked, you know, hard to get to where I wanted to be, which was ultimately creating content for the game that, you know, I played and enjoyed for so long. Yeah.
And so honestly, like, so Ryan, you said you've been here 6-7 years. What's been your favorite thing to design so far?
So I'm really bad with questions like this because I think that, I mean, I could. It
can't pick a favorite child.
Depends. Yeah, I mean, I can't. Yeah, I definitely can't pick a favorite project. I think that it really depends. Like, they all have different like aims or setups. Like, I really enjoyed, you know, where archaeology ended up. You know, how it ended up being in the end. You know, there was bumps in the road. Like, we had constant like reevaluations of bits and stuff. Like, it was a different mammoth to tackle essentially, but then there are like simpler or like smaller projects. Like I really enjoyed, you know, putting together the PVM hub, which was very much just about, you know, what is the problem that we want to solve, like a very simple like one liner, let's solve it, which is significantly different to make a new skill. Like there's a lot more, of course, things you have to worry about, and then there's just been loads of projects over time, like a lot of skilling updates that I've worked on between them. Just really enjoyed working on like trying something new and then seeing if it sticks or falls and then working with it, so like expanding on it. There's some stuff like, for example, we did in deep sea fishing that didn't really like hit the mark that we were going for, so like fishing frenzy, but we kind of learned from it and adapted some play style of that into like archaeology. And yeah, sorry, completely irrelevant of your question. I think that I don't really have a favorite project. I probably have the opposite. Like I have not favorite projects I'm not too like happy about. Not that I'm unhappy, but I feel like I could do more, I guess is the way of looking at it.
Well, isn't that always design though? Like I don't know if I've met a designer who isn't constantly like, oh, that was awesome, but I could have done, or like, isn't that just part of being in design at some point?
Yeah, that 100%. I mean, yeah, I think that it's very easy as well to get stuck in the like, oh, this could have been better, this could have been that. But yeah, we will do it, and I think that's just something of being like a creative individual. Everyone is self-critical quite a lot about like how we could make this better, but it's actually really useful anyway, because you go into the next project going, well, I've learned like what I should do better or what I shouldn't do anymore, and you know, adapt that and take it through. But yes, you're right. That's literally every designer ever, I'm sure.
What about you, Jack? Is that the same with you? Are you like an obsessive when it comes?
I'm a little distracted by the chat.
You're like drawn into the MetaMouse chat. By the way, just as an update, actually, nice segue for me because I was looking for an opportunity to say this. So, latest update I can give on the kind of flashing and any remaining crashing issues. We're still looking into the issues, and those of you who still have anything affected, we are still investigating. If everything goes well, we're hoping to have some sort of change on Friday earliest, which should hopefully address the flickering Intel graphics cards. There's a Reddit thread we have going that will have updates. For those who've joined us a little late, we are going to talk about kind of the reveal or the announcement or more details on Raksha later. This is Tea Time. Tea Time is about us just hanging out, chatting, and letting you get to know some of the JMods on the team, what they do, and a little bit about kind of who they are as people. So if you just joined us, just know that that's the kind of stream it is. We are looking at chat still. If you have any questions for Jack or Ryan that are, you know, about like general, what their jobs mean, and all that sort of stuff, this is the time and place. Anything more specific, those are usually on our other streams. So we'll keep continuing back. But thanks for the nice segue, Jack. You like set me up perfectly for that one. I don't want to break your role.
Problem means I'm worried about I can't read the chat if I sit like this. I'll give it a go. My eyes are getting very old.
Yeah, you can be like a casual.
I think there is a reasonable question that's quite interesting, worth addressing there, right? Which is what the people in the chat are asking, essentially, the ones who aren't spamming old quotes of mine, which are great, is why are we doing a live stream when we could be fixing a serious bug? And the answer, I think, is that we're not the developers who would or could fix that bug. Two of us aren't developers at all. Ryan, I don't know what the bug is. It's possible you could fix it, but there are people whose job it is to specifically know and fix that part of the game. And not every developer can do every role. And I think that's worth reiterating that if you said chat, go and fix this bug, I would just destroy the game. It would.
Or even worse, you throw the community manager at it and he's like, "What?"
Yeah. I could at least have a look at the code and have a go, right? I'd probably.
Yeah, I would look at the code and be like, I know HTML. Is this HTML? No. Okay, I'm done. Bye. See you later.
But I think it is a reasonable question to ask, because I think a lot of people don't know what the breakdown of responsibilities and skills is within the company, and I think it's not an unreasonable question to ask, I think.
Yeah, and obviously the team who are working on it are working super hard. It's been a big focus. Perky's been working really closely with the team to get your feedback to them. Make sure you go to that Reddit thread too, because there's information in there that you can help provide that tends to help the team. So, if you want to kind of help the process, please do jump in that thread. It'd be super helpful to know what graphics cards you're running, all that sort of stuff. So, back on to what we're talking about. I'm going to go to you, Ryan, because you were talking a little bit about kind of like the fact that you played RuneScape and like working on RuneScape's a dream game. If you were like RuneScape disappeared tomorrow and you had to go and make a game, like what would you want to go make in terms of like a type of game? Do you have anything you'd want to make, or would you want to make another RuneScape like?
I'm going to break your question because like I said, I'm really bad at questions. I think that making a new game is an interesting thing. Like making a new game is significantly different to making content for a game. Like they are two massively different things. And I think that like I could name plenty of games that I'd love to work on. You know, if I wasn't working on RuneScape, or like styles of games, you know, MOBAs or FPS games, like I'd love to work on them. When it comes to like making a new game, that is like, I mean, I don't have the answer to that question still, because I've thought about it plenty of times of like, what is the next big game, like genre or style, or what could it be? Not necessarily saying I'd love to just make a big game, but it's always the thought, you know, like when battle royales hit the I don't know what the term is, but like they just popped off essentially, you know, like what is the next style, the genre of game? Yeah, I mean, honestly, if RuneScape wasn't around, I'd be very sad. So yeah, for sure, I'd be spending a decent amount of time being very upset about that.
What about you, Jack?
Yeah, you go, Jack, because you've probably got an answer.
I can tell you what the ideal game I would make. I have started making it, but it's outrageously off scope. And there aren't that many devs. I used to sit in my lunch breaks at work and code. I haven't done it for a while yet because I've been so busy. But ModPie used to make fun of me because he's an actual engine programmer. I'm not. My ideal game is a strategy game where you play a secret conspiracy within the American government in 1945, concealing the existence of aliens from the world.
I don't even know where you start on that.
It's quite specific.
You're just giving away your idea now. Someone's going to go and make that.
Nah, it's hard. Yep. It's hard to make. That is a hard game to make.
That's some confidence, like dropping that on a live stream. That idea on a live stream, be like, it's hard to make. No one can do it. It's fine.
Yeah, I know it's look. The reason a lot of game developers make games is because that's the game they want to play, right? That's the best reason to make a game.
Exactly. Yeah.
You wish that game existed so that you could play it. So if someone wants to make that game for me, brilliant, then I can play it, right?
Yeah, you got it. You just get to enjoy it. Yeah, it's a good point. Because that just makes me think though, because you both talked about like the difficulty of making a new game. Like, what's the difficulty of making a game, like just doing content for a game that's almost 20 years old, right? Like we're coming up to that 20th anniversary in just under 2 months. Like, how do you even approach that with like players who've been playing for that long?
Yeah, there's multiple challenges there, right? Like, Like player expectation is a huge one. Player expertise is a huge one, right?
Mhm.
Like there are I think it's probably safe to say that except for the most, we have some seriously hardcore players among our dev team, but not everyone on our dev team is a seriously hardcore player. And our most dedicated players are more knowledgeable, and in some cases have been playing the game for much longer than our developers. That does create a challenge because we have to try to live up to that expectation. But also, yeah, players have been playing the game for years. Some of the players don't want the game to change, some do. That's a constant problem for us, Ryan. You talk about that. Like, I think the term you always use is RuneScapiness, right? But like, does it feel RuneScapey? And we're always asking that, right? Like, because we can come up. Some of our greatest successes, but also some of our greatest failures, have been adding content to the game that isn't a good fit for RuneScape, right? Sometimes it actually works really, really well. Sometimes we discover, like I would say, archaeology. There's never been anything quite like archaeology before, but archaeology feels like a piece of RuneScape content, right? In a way that perhaps some other things don't quite feel like RuneScape content. They don't quite feel like what you're looking for from RuneScape. So that's a huge consideration. RuneScape is an established cultural phenomenon, right? Like, and it has a feel, and it has such an expectation and such a huge significance to people. There's that big controversy about, like, does George Lucas own? Oh, just a big. Oh, we're starting the stream, right? There's that big controversy about whether George Lucas.
Not the fun.
Whether George Lucas owns Star Wars or whether the fans own Star Wars, right? To what extent is it George Lucas's right to change it, right? And it's the same with RuneScape, right? I'm a developer on RuneScape, I'm a designer on RuneScape, right? But it's not my right to just mess RuneScape up. It's the players that should determine that.
This is a good question because I can answer this one. I definitely, I mean, as Jack mentions, there's a heavy amount of identifying, like, what is the identity of the game and making sure that the content you're producing still fits that identity, unless we're trying to change the identity, which we're not. And then, like, but at the same time being able to make content that is fresh, because making the same content over and over again is not exactly appealing, of course. But like, something that I've like thoroughly enjoyed when it comes to designing content for RuneScape is because, as we mentioned, like, being a player for so many years, or being within like the player bubbles, being able to talk to players, being able to understand like when they're annoyed about certain things. Like, I can agree, like, I play some content sometimes and I'm like, this is really annoying. What can we do about it? But yeah, one of the most enjoyable things is talking with players about their ideas and then taking their idea and trying to figure out how to fit that into the game in the right way. Because, of course, like, throwing out like ideas, for example, we could come up with this really cool new, I don't know, effect for a skilling item, but at the end of the day, maybe it breaks the game, like, long term. So there is that like fence to cross. And I'm very, like, I feel like I've over the years got really good at being able to jump over the fence and back again, of sort of like sitting on the player side, getting the cool ideas, and then jumping over and figuring out how we can actually put them in the game and make sense and, not break the game long term and fit the identity, etc. But that's like always something really good to do, which is why, sometimes just seeing like obscene ideas from players that like sound amazing, it's really good in like principle, and then we can actually go away, like we do go away, we see certain ideas and we talk about them as a group, say like, how can we make this work? This is awesome, but it fundamentally breaks, core combat, for example. So yeah, like that's something super interesting, and I think that's just one of those things you have to adapt when it comes to like we said, we definitely have people in game, like players that know more about like the intricacies to some degree of combat than like actually how you apply it. Like, we know how combat is made, as developers, and we know how combat functions, but the application, like, you'll see certain people from a combat perspective, like the amount of DPM is significantly different between like a casual, someone using Revolution and someone using full manual with like every, they fully know how all abilities work, which is definitely something that, I'm planning, if anyone out there wants to teach me, I'd like to know how to like fully optimize combat to like know, like tick perfect. I'd like to know about, abilities and stuff. So by all means, but yeah, there are definitely people out there that know that stuff. And we try to learn from them as well. But it's nice having experts of our game, like people that are out in the community who know things that are good to like mention and we can look into as well.
I mean, that, like, to your point, I think that's like a really big part of design, though, right? Is like that will happen with anything you create usually, won't it? Is there will be people who just take it to that level beyond what you even expected in the design. Is that something that you encounter often, or is that kind of a more rare, unexpected treat that happens?
It's always the case. It's never going to be the case that the best player of a game is the person who made it.
Mhm.
Like, it's just extraordinarily statistically unlikely, right? I mean, I guess if you made your own little indie game and you've played it thousands of times and no one else has played it, I'm sure. But any like major game that's had a major release, the best players are never going to be the people that made the game. And I think that surprises players a lot of the time. I think especially really skilled players sort of just not necessarily assume the devs are good, because they probably assume the devs are bad, but they're disappointed that the devs aren't as good at the game as them, I think. Which is kind of underselling their own expertise, I think, right? Players who are really good at the game should be proud of like how rare and significant that is.
Yeah, it's something we talk about all the time.
Usually never going to be that good.
Yeah, and that's something we talk about all the time as well. Like, you know, as I've been playing RuneScape on and off, you know, since I was 13, because it was 2003. I know that because my account name is horrendous, and I'm never mentioning it because it's that bad. But it has the date in it at least. But the point I'm getting to is, like, you know, I think I'm like just under 2,500 total level. I've played a ton of RuneScape, and there's still lots I don't know. And that's the crazy thing is, it still baffles me when I see the expertise of people out there across a game this big. You know, when I've been playing, you know, I've probably put in over 1,000 hours. I don't know what it would be in game time. I need to go to Lumbee apparently, but yeah, it just baffles me all the time. And obviously, so I guess it's not really a surprise here; it's unexpected. Is there anything RuneScape players have really surprised you on? Like, is there anything you've been really taken aback on that you can remember?
Sorry, can I just add to something? Is that right? Before
Yeah, of course. Yeah, my questions are just here to be annoying and lead you out of garden path. You go where you want to go.
Yeah, I think that that's just another point to mention on like design, in that when we design content, like there are some good design fundamentals whereby you design, like there are plenty of designers and you know, talks out there that talk about this, but designing like a toolkit for players to make use of is like generally, like, we don't design, for example, a specific encounter, whether it's take a boss encounter, to be done in a very specific way. It's like we create mechanics and we want them to be solved, and you know, we know that there are some tools available to you, and then you know, a month after release, players have these strategies on YouTube, and then you see them like a year later, look at the strategies now, like they're completely different, and it's about using your toolkit that you have available to you, so all your abilities, your items, all this sort of stuff. That yes, like long term, sometimes it's like if you go back and look at some of the older bosses, like the strategy for doing, say, Virago nowadays is completely different to how it was when it was released. Or I say completely, like, you know, whether or not people are doing it more nowadays than they once were, and that sort of thing. But it's an interesting point, because we design like essentially the play space and let the players make use of the tools to, you know, do stuff in it, which is that double-edged sword, because it does come with the surprise of like Hooli, like they've just managed to like completely annihilate this thing because they've got you know, these 20 years of game content available to them, and they've just perfected it. And it comes with the positives and the negatives, but it is super interesting. It's nice being able to, as a player of a game, like speaking personally as well, playing games, being able to, like, I really enjoy games where you have like animation cancelling, so like to optimize your character, or you know, you use two abilities in a certain way and they were never intended like to be that, but it becomes meta to do it like that, because that's just the way it works, and it's just allowing players to, you know, create their game. Like, it's their game at the end of the day, you know, create it and play it how you want to play.
That's something, as a designer, I really struggle with that exact thing that you're talking about. It comes up all the time in things I make, both for RuneScape and outside of RuneScape, that like there's this really difficult like balancing act between having the game be played in a coherent way and having the game be explored in the player's discretion. And like, because obviously, if like there's this really fuzzy line where if a player finds a crazy broken strategy that just destroys the game, obviously that has to be bug fixed, right? But if the player finds a crazy broken strategy that isn't so good that it completely destroys the game, oh well, that's great, that's emergent gameplay. And I really struggle on where to draw that line and how to, there's an analogy for me in like CCG games like Magic or Hearthstone, right, where like it's really displeasing to me as the kind of gamer and designer that I am if I combo two cards together that don't make any narrative sense. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but like there's like if you play Magic the Gathering a lot, like there's almost every combo. You just look at the cards that you're playing, and you're like, what on earth is happening here? This is like what I've got a god, and I've embedded a cybernetic implant in its neck, and that's made it incredibly powerful. What? Why would a god need a cybernetic? It just doesn't make any sense, right? And that's beside the point. That's not why you're playing that game, right?
Mhm.
But I really struggle with that element of game design. It's something that I don't think I'm not actually honestly that good at, and I have to like constantly check my designs with other people. I'm like, have I gone too far? Have I gone too far in forcing players? Have I gone too far in giving players freedom?
Mhm.
I find that really difficult to balance.
Yeah, I mean that honestly sounds it. I can't. Do you find like as a designer, there's lots of different like or not necessarily kinds of, but like different different. It's hard to put it in words. Do you find there's a lot of a drastic difference in the way people approach design between designers? Is it really kind of because design itself is quite broad? Do you find it's quite a broad school of different designers, and each one tends to have their specific strengths and kind of way of thinking?
Yeah. The way the primary breakdown, I have two different breakdowns I use because I do like design training stuff at Jagex, and the two primary breakdowns I use are, I guess it's technically one, although so there's three kinds of designer broadly speaking, and one of them is really rare. And the first is like designers who think first in terms of like story and theme and the world. So they might that's not just quests. It could be like, well, we're going to make a boss. What's your premise for a boss? Okay, well, it's going to be an alien that lands in a spaceship and shoots you with laser beams and has life drain magic, because the narrative that we've established up to this point establishes clearly that he has life drain magic, right? The alternative is that you're a designer who starts with some sort of mechanics. You're like, I've had a really cool idea, you know, for a boss or for a skill, or it could be anything. I think that it would be, you know, we have this cool new tech that allows us to do like lines of fire, right? This is not actually, you know, I imagine like we have this cool new tech that can do this thing. We should make a boss that does this. And also all of our, you know, none of our bosses have had a mechanic where the players have to throw a ball to each other. So we should have a boss where the players have to throw a ball to each other. And they'll go to the story guy and say like, why would they be throwing a ball? How do you explain that? And actually, like Ryan and I are almost like opposite in that regard. I don't think that's unfair to you, Ryan. Like you come from mechanics first, and I come very much story first. And like Mod Raven, for example, is very much story first.
Yeah.
It's definitely a perfect. I mean, we'll talk a tiny bit about Raksha here, just because why not? But like, it is a point of on Raksha specifically, like mechanically, you know, I was like, Tim, I want to do this. You know, I really want to do this thing, and this is how I want it to be. I don't know how it makes sense in the RuneScape world yet, but this is okay. And then Tim's like, okay, well, and then gives a load of feedback and like how we can tweak it. And
here's how it ties into the next 2 years of storyline. Here's how that boss mechanic sets up the next 2 years of story. No problem.
I mean, like it's a perfect blend. Like that is the example for Raksha specifically. There was like the design, like mechanic design, majority of it, you know, was on like me to deal with. And then, but like I had some ideas. I can't really say much because I can't spoil anything, but I had some ideas and I was like, can we make this work? How can we make it work? And I worked with Jack and some others on it. But like archaeology is also a perfect example whereby I'm definitely more on the mechanic side. Like I have a good idea of narrative, but my knowledge of the RuneScape like world is good, but my knowledge of like the actual specifics of like what characters can do what and where are they in the world right now and stuff is not like as good as I'd like it to be. But when we worked on archaeology, for example, like Mod Rowley was like perfect combination with myself in that, you know, I was really like, oh, we could do this for archaeology, like this is how we can make excavation work, and you know, and I was like, but at the same time, I have no idea what artifacts to make or what materials, or like what to call them. And Rowley's like, don't worry, like I know all this, like he knows so much about history, it's like crazy. But like that is a good thing about it's really good to have a diverse range of designers, developers. Similarly, like on a different topic, like we have people who are really like adverse in, you know, narrative or combat or skills. Like if you want to talk it in a RuneScape term, like knowledgeable about the skills of RuneScape, knowledgeable about the combat system of RuneScape, and then knowledgeable about the story of RuneScape, which from a player's perspective, you'd probably break that down into combat content, non-combat content, and quests. And that's kind of how you'd see it. But we're not as clear cut as like that, I think. Like many people are, for them, to be honest, most people, if not everyone, is very multidisciplined. It's just that people have their significant strengths. Yeah, sorry. That's And no, that wasn't our boss update for the comment in the chat.
Just one little like small mention. That's it.
That's all the info. Yeah.
Is there anything else you both want to say about what you do, or anything like that whilst we're here? I've been kind of running through a bunch of kind of questions that come to mind, but what about you two? Is there anything you want to cover?
Can we talk about Raksha?
I mean, to be honest, you know what? Like, this has been a hell of a lot of fun, but I think we should end it there, to be honest. I think a big thanks to both of you for taking the time out to talk about yourselves. I think, you know, Rakshas would be a nice thing to talk about, but I think we've gone into enough what about it means to be a designer. I'm all out of T2, which I think means we're pretty much all out of time. So with that, I think we're going to get towards the closing parts of the stream and see what happens. But I think, unfortunately, our mod Spear is too busy doing PGH.
I'm here.
Failed to run VT. We were gonna have a nice little moment there. We were gonna like have a nice little like fake out, and he's too busy catching dinos and trying to get a mattock.
I'm just trying not to mess it up again, frankly.
That's the pressure on Spears' shoulders today. Is that he so wants to not fail another single after. By the way, masterclass on the double.
I'm about
to say. I have
I
to.
don't know how I got that right and then messed up the single so badly. Oh dear.
Yeah.
That's alright. We can let you finish a big game, Hammer, first. We'll all just watch.
Don't let us rush you. It's fine.
You're all being held in suspense by Mod Spear trying to complete a solo BGH. Welcome to the tea break.
It's alright. It's alright. I've got a plan. It does mean killing
he
a
has the
dinosaur,
plan.
but you know that's kind of thematically correct, isn't it?
What about if we put some stakes on this? What about the reveal happens if you are successful and it doesn't if you're not?
Oh, I don't know.
No, because then
the chat pressure
absolutely destroyed.
Oh no, trust me, we would show it any time. We would show it either way.
It's fine. We have faith anyway. You're
Hashtag
good.
playing Spears. I feel tension for you after seeing mess up the last solo though.
Yeah, I know. I do as well. That's not normal. I can't believe I started on the duo.
Honestly, like whenever I
oh god, this is a bad
hear
idea.
the BGH music, it brings me back to the archaeology release where I found out how much Dragon Mattocks were going for, and I decided to stop playing archaeology and chase Mattocks. Actually, get some decent.
I haven't had my disgusting luck on stream that I had when I did this the last time I played Pig Game Hunter. I did a duo and got 2 Dragon Mattocks out of it.
Very nice.
Which is nothing shy of disgusting.
There we go. You got all 3 spears in, right? It's like a single run.
Yeah. Come on, what's my name?
Someone asked in the chat earlier. I said I'm a developer, I'm a designer, and someone said, "But I thought you said you weren't a developer." And actually, like, developer means both just game developer in general. Anyone who works on RuneScape is a developer, and then also we have a specific role called content developer, which is Ryan's job title. And we call them developers for short. So I am a developer in the sense that I work on RuneScape. But I'm not a developer in the sense that I'm not a content creator. I don't know if we
I think it's time.
Do you guys count yourselves as developers, as community managers? Do you think of yourselves as developers? Would you?
I say I'm part of the development team. It depends. I like the last gig I had. I consider myself a developer because I actually did some design stuff on the live service side, but. I don't know if I call myself a developer here. It depends on the gig, really. But anyway, I think we've kept chatting suspense enough through Mod Spear. Mod Spear, why don't you kick off a little look at what's coming next month?
Millennia ago, Gillenor was an untouched, unspoiled.
It is playing, we just can't hear it.
Only plants and animals lived there, untroubled by language or industry. A handful of elder artifacts had been discarded by the elder gods. One of these was the Codex, a repository of both knowledge and power. When a great beast came across the strange monolith, it couldn't know what awaited. It emerged from the Codex fundamentally changed. It was a colossus. An animal demigod, the ultimate apex predator, unchallenged. When the Dragon King arrived, they were fascinated by the creature. They found it, captured it, and imprisoned it in their city. They called it Raksha. Nothing quite like it has been seen before or since. It was not just a colossus, but a shadow colossus. Its power came not from the elder gods, but from somewhere else. To the priest Kranon, it was a religious inspiration, the source of his heresy. The scientist, Kerapak, took a very different line of inquiry. He experimented until the beast was of no more use to him. I recommend that you do not allow it to leave the complex. The damage it could inflict is considerable.
So there you have it. The battle with Raksha is coming. Now, both of you, I think, players got an amazing first tease there of, where and what he is. But what should players know about Raksha?
He's a boss. He's a solo and duo boss, Ryan. Solo and
That's
duo.
correct. Yeah,
I
solo
won't
and
say that out
duo.
loud so much.
Solo and duo. Yep.
Solo
Just to
and duo.
confirm.
And what's the most important thing to know about the boss, I think, is that it doesn't have 15 phases.
That's true.
Contrary
That is
to-
Someone was
also
asking
another
that, right?
thing to mention.
Contrary to, everyone wants to know, does it have 15 phases? It does not have 15 phases. I
Mhm.
think that's all the information we've got. I think. No, we have.
I mean,
Yeah,
to
I
be... You go, Ryan.
Yeah, no, yeah, just to elaborate a bit on Jack's humour. So solo duo boss, there isn't 15 phases. From a confirmation point of view, that random, that so-called leak that kept getting posted around, this is not true. And I think something else to mention is, I don't know, Jack, if you want to mention it, there was comments in the Twitch chat about the audio. It sounded like, it was a bit robotic. I don't know if you want to talk a bit more about it.
That's Zaros talking. I've got the Twitch chat, and I've also got the Lore Discord open, and the Lore Discord guys went, "It's Zaros!" So they recognized him instantly. It's the same voice actor.
Cool. But yeah,
and
so
the
I
same
just
audio
didn't know if we were
effect, right?
confirming. But yeah, that's Zaros talking. What else can I say? I don't know what I can say because we're not showing much. But so yeah, solo duo with the intention of, if you want to go in solo, by all means go for it. If you want to go in duo because you want to take a friend and you just want to have some fun, go for it. I can tell you that from a solo duo perspective, if you were to go in on your own, you'd get one drop. If you go in as duo, you'd get one drop each. So it's not a case of one drop that you have to share. It's just like you both doing your solos together ultimately. Does it scale? Is a question. Sorry, did you want to?
Yeah, I was just saying. So, what? Let's set the picture for the people tuning in. What kind of challenge are we looking at here? What kind of player have we designed Raksha in mind for when it comes to bossing?
Yeah. So we've currently. I know that of previous streams we've said a few things, and ultimately he sits between Raksha and Telos. There is a but in there, in the sense of I would always say that we've designed Raksha to be a test of sort of testing something else. He's not a DPS dummy. He's a test of your ability, your endurance, your consistency. So he's more punishing if you make mistakes. So it's about how well can you manage the fight for the duration of the fight. It's definitely a test of your knowledge of the game, your skill of the game. It's not the hardest boss in the game, like we're saying, it's between Raksha and Telos, just for those that are curious. But yeah, we're just trying to see, how well, your arsenal of tools, your high tier gear, can you survive? Can you make use of the things you're well adversed in? And I know that, again, I don't know if I'm allowed to say these things, but hey, I'll just say them and we'll find out.
You say all this, it's all good.
But yeah, in terms of rewards, I'm not going to talk about the specifics of rewards because I feel like that I may not be allowed to say, but I can confirm that Wait, what can I confirm? Sorry, let me just have a moment to think. I mean, Monrama just said abort mission in the chat, so I don't know. I guess what I can confirm is that there is.
Oh, sorry, you go, Ryan.
Okay, I was just going to say on various socials, people have suggested things like, theorized that if we're doing like a T92 shield or a scythe or something. So I can confirm that we are not doing weapon or armor. Like as in we're not doing an armor set, we're not doing a new tier of weapon. We know that at the moment we didn't want to up the tier right now, but we are introducing various codexes or codices, should I say. That's all I can really say for now.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think. Yeah, I mean, I think like the important thing, and tell me if Ryan and Jack, if you feel like this is off the mark, but we're trying to preserve a lot of the surprise and player discovery around this update, right? We're trying to make it so that we're not showing the actual fight or any of the mechanics. So these are things that you go and discover for yourselves when you kind of take to go fight Raksha, and that kind of extends the reward somewhat. We say that's a fair comment, Jack, Ryan, as to the reasoning behind our slight veil of secrecy around this Shadow Colossus?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we always like to. We don't want to spoil everything before it gets there, because if we were to tell you everything now, and you can't play it right now, so you have to wait. It's sometimes nice to hold off some things. I think when it comes to specifics, it's always nice to hold. I mean, when you log into the game on release and you see what codices they are, because you'd be able to check, in the in like the collection log. You'll be able to theorize what they do. I don't even know. I guess you'd be able to see the descriptions of the abilities somehow. I guess I'm not going to say any more of that actually, but I'm sure people will on release decide to talk about the abilities before anyone's got them. But again, someone has to get them and then use them, and it'll be interesting. But yeah, I think that talking about the codices, something I would want to mention is like we went down the route of doing codices rather than weapons and armor, because we believe that for example, people talk a lot about, like with archaeology, we introduced new perk tiers, some new weapons. Ultimately, we don't feel the need for this boss was to release more armor or more weapons. We would rather tweak what we already have or add more sort of opportunities or to mix up your ability rotations, or a new ability that gives you. Again, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop talking actually, because I'll end up just saying loads of stuff.
Some people are asking, does it have requirements? I don't believe it has any hard requirements, except there's a very short mini quest you have to complete to get in.
Yeah, so on that point, yeah, the only requirement is the mini quest, which as long as you have access to Anachronia, you can go and do the mini quest.
Don't get excited that that's a big quest. It's not. Although it is, there's quite a lot of lore, technically, but it's not like a big quest or anything like that.
It's essentially like what we discussed, like Jack and myself, early on, was that when we release a new boss, sometimes the boss just exists, just appears out of nowhere. But we obviously, we set up, like, thanks to the guys who worked on Orphan, there's a lot of like set up for what Raksha is, a bit of lore there. The cutscene that we just showed you is part of the mini quest, so you will see that in game. But the mini quest is ultimately we're going to explain a bit more about this creature, and then you can fight it. And that's the reward of the mini quest. You can now fight the boss. And then there is a lot of lore in dialogue. Again, I'm trying to be careful what I say.
Yeah, there's some dialogue to explore. There isn't going to be like a rare lore drop book or anything like that. Like a 1 in 5,000. No, let's not do that. But yeah. We're doing a lore stream tomorrow, aren't we? So it's probably a good time to answer more details.
Yeah, so tomorrow will be, if you are looking to know the lore so far in the build up to Raksha, there's a stream tomorrow that Perky will be hosting that's going to go into the details of kind of the lore build up to Raksha and kind of the story so far, as it were. So if you're interested in following what that journey has looked like and kind of all the way we've built up to this, that'll be the stream to go to. Today, really, we're just here to give you some first initial details on what to expect. And kind of in terms of difficulty, solo, duo, etc. Jack, Ryan, is there anything else you want to touch on around? Obviously, like we've talked about the fact that Raksha is the Shadow Colossus of Orphan, and that you'll find him in Orphan. Is there anything else you want to say before we look for a sign off?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, if people have lore questions, feel free to ask them during the lore stream tomorrow. We can talk in more detail then.
I do have, because something actually I haven't posted anything on my own socials about the boss since working on it, mainly because I wasn't aware of, like, too sure of what we couldn't talk about and stuff. But I know that something I did want to mention, because we are doing a solo and duo mode, we are tracking solo and duo kills and kill time separately, but it's not considered, like, neither of the modes are considered a hard mode. So for your final boss, it's just 100 kills. There is no, like, insane final boss being 100 hard mode kills. We're not asking you to do 100 solo and duo, it's just 100 kills, but we're tracking them separately so you guys can, show off how many duos you've done, solos. And I know the chat are asking about release dates, so
yeah, I think it's time to drop it. I'm actually gonna drop it now. So when can you get the fight? Take the fight to Raksha. Well, battle will begin on December 7th, so we're just under 2 weeks away from you getting your hands on it. December 7th is when you will finally get to begin fight Raksha, and battle will begin. So Mod Jack, Mod Ryan, thanks very much for joining us for this small reveal of a big old boss. Hopefully you had a fun time with the tea time and you got your first juicy details. Don't forget to join us tomorrow if you want to catch up the lore so far. But other than that, thank you for watching, and we'll see you all soon. Ta-ra!